for Next 2026. Yesterday sparked a lot of thoughtful conversation. We heard how organizations are moving from reacting to being more intentional about how they operate, fundraise, and plan for what's ahead. And what stood out is that this isn't abstract. It's already happening inside teams right now. Today, we're continuing that conversation with a focus on alignment to increase fundraising impact, how lean teams are growing fundraising without overwhelming their teams, and what it actually takes to make change stick. I also want to invite you to participate in our Coffee on Us giveaway. If you haven't already entered, it takes less than a minute. Simply follow Giveffect on LinkedIn, find a Next related post, and in the comments, tag Giveffect and share one thing you've learned or hope to learn at Next. Be sure to include hashtag Next 2026. We've already seen some great takeaways come through, and we'd love to hear yours as well. We'll be announcing the winners at the end of the final session today. Now I'm going to pass it over to Yulia to kick off our first session. Have a great first day, or actually, great second day.
Absolutely. Well, Tara, thank you so much for your remarks. And yeah, it's really great giveaway for everyone who is live joining us today. It's only take a couple of minutes, so feel free to um, enter that, and we'll announce winners later. But everyone, my name is Yulia Zhernovaya. I'll be the moderator for today's session. Thank you so much for joining us for From Silent to Synchronized, aligning fundraising and marketing for growth. For those who might not be as familiar with what Giveffect is, we are an all-in-one nonprofit software platform with all the tools to make your organization more efficient, from donor, volunteer management, CRM, email marketing, grants, you name it. And our goal is simple: to help nonprofits run smoothly, operate efficiently, achieve financial stability, and ultimately further your mission. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we kick off today's session. First of all, yesterday, the whole day, we received so much engagement and it was absolutely fantastic. There is a chat available for you all. So if you want to say hello and share with us where you're joining from, what's your name, organization, and so on, please feel free to do so. We'd love to see where everyone is tuning in from. But also throughout the session, if you have a feedback, and this is a peer-led webinar, if you have your own best practices, comments, and so on, please don't hesitate, put them in the chat. We truly appreciate and love all the engagement. Hi, Joanne, joining from California. Welcome. Um, Another quick note is there is a Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. This session is going to be for about 40 minutes as a discussion, and then we are going to spend the last 10 minutes on live Q&A. So don't wait until the last minute as you hear our speakers throughout the session. If you have your questions, put them in that Q&A box, and we will make sure to answer all or as many questions as possible live. But I just want to welcome everyone one more time. There's Alexi. Hello, Jennifer, who's joining from Ohio. Jamie from Florida. Dana, welcome from Illinois. Rick, welcome from Yakima. Jennifer, Susan, fantastic. Nia, well, thank you so much, everyone who is sharing their organization, location with us in the chat. Again, we are thrilled to have you all here. But with this being said, let's dive in. At next virtual summit, we are talking about what it takes to build a future ready nonprofit. And one pattern we see again and again, many nonprofits do not have a fundraising problem or marketing problem. A lot of time, or most of the time, it's a coordination problem. As you know, amazing people doing an amazing work, but donor outreach, campaign planning, events, and stewardship are often happening in parallel instead of in sync. fundraising and marketing are both working towards the same outcome, but in many instances and many organizations, those teams operate on different timelines with different priorities, and with limited visibility towards what other team is doing. When it all starts to change, everything feels more connected. Campaign become more coordinated, messaging becomes clearer, donor experience the organization as a unified voice instead of separate departments. And internally, teams spend less time chasing information and trying to connect the dots. That kind of alignment is what makes work smoother, and it can lead to stronger campaigns, better donor engagement, and more sustainable growth. And that's exactly what today's conversation is about. We are thrilled to have with us today Ashley Miller, Director of Philanthropy, and Erin Rast, Marketing and Communication Manager at Harvest Hope Food Bank. And they have been building that kind of collaboration inside their organization. Today, we are going to share how their team worked together, what changed as fundraising and marketing became more aligned, and what other nonprofits can learn from their approach. Well, Ashley, Erin, again, welcome. We're thrilled to have you here. And Ashley, let's start with you. If you don't mind, can you share just a little bit more about your role at Harvest Hope Food Bank? And for those who might not be as familiar with your organization, give us a quick sense of the work that you do and fundraising efforts that your team focuses on.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Ashley Miller. I am the Director of Philanthropy at Harvest Hope Food Bank. And what we do, we are a food bank and we service 20 counties in the state of South Carolina. So our overall goal is to feed our neighbors. We have actually two emergency food pantries, one in Columbia, South Carolina, and one in Greenville. And if people don't know what an emergency food pantry is that's when our neighbors come to us when they need food. So they come. They do an intake form and they are able to get food once every 28 days. Typically, it's a little over a week's worth of food when they come into our organization. So that is near and dear to us. We try to feed as many people as we can. So collaborating with marketing and philanthropy, I mean, that is our overall goal, is to raise as much money as we possibly can to feed as many people as we possibly can across our 20 counties in South Carolina. Within the philanthropy department, it kind of breaks down volunteers, food drives, grants, and donor relations falls under philanthropy within Harvest Hope.
I see. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. Welcome. Now, Erin, could you please introduce yourself and share a little bit more about your role in marketing and communication and how your role supports campaign, donor engagement, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So as mentioned, I oversee our marketing and communications for Harvest Hope Food Bank, and that really spans anywhere from public relations, print marketing, digital marketing, event support, and ultimately supporting my other departments such as philanthropy. As Ashley mentioned, her department oversees a lot of different aspects of the food bank, from volunteers to food drives to donor relations. So part of my role in the organization is supporting those functions. So whether it's getting more volunteers to sign up for volunteer shifts to come work at our emergency food pantry, whether it's getting donors to donate to annual or monthly campaigns, or just raising awareness in the community, telling people of the services that we offer, so that we can, fulfill our mission. That's kind of the bread and butter of what our marketing team does here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing those details. Well, today we're going to talk a lot about the alignment, right? And how things working right now, what are the best practices and so on. But I wanted to start, before it all happened. Actually, maybe we'll start with you. And I'm curious if you can share how things were before, when fundraising and marketing were less coordinated, and where did it show up most clearly? Was it messaging, campaign, events timing, and so on?
Well, when we weren't aligned, I'm going to say, of course, all those things come into play when you're not hand in hand with your marketing department, or you don't, you're not communicating the way you should be. In this instance, of course, since Erin has been with the organization, she has been amazing, and we have been able to collaborate and come together, which has been amazing because I have seen how it's like to not to have that, and now I can see how it is to have that. But when we didn't have that, it made it to where if we were just trying to do any type of a campaign or any type of appeal that we're trying to get out on a monthly basis, because that's what we typically like to do is do appeals on a monthly basis. When you don't have that collaboration and that communication, I think it messes up timing. It messes up messaging when you're not doing that collaboration. When you're not organized within departments, I think things sometimes can seem rushed, and you just don't have enough time to get things done or get it promoted, properly. Um, you know, Now with what we're doing, those things aren't happening. So it's amazing to be able to actually have these conversations, promote it the way we need to, and then me take it to the philanthropy team for them to be able to promote it and talk to donors the way they should about what's going on in the marketing department and what campaigns or appeals they may have going out as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of those like missed opportunities, right, happened before
Right.
when things were not as aligned, I'm sure, on all fronts. Um, Erin, curious on your side, like on the marketing side, what are the most common friction points when things are not aligned? Again, it can be in Harvest Hope or even in your previous career, right? Last minute requests, wrong audience communications, like I'm sure things like that happen. What are the most co common ones?
Yeah, absolutely. So, echoing a lot of what Ashley said, especially as it pertains to timeliness, leading up to events or leading up to campaigns, just not having enough of a runway to feel prepared for whatever assets we might need to support a campaign or an event. And needing to know the details too. Lack of details can be a serious issue because our donors and our events are not a one size fits all. So we shouldn't be approaching it that way. We need to have the time and the communication to really understand what's at hand or who's at hand in terms of communication. And having completely candid conversations here with all these other nonprofits who I'm sure have been there before. We have had events in the past where our partners maybe didn't feel supported because
Mhm.
internally we didn't have that type of communication to get them the assets or maybe the support on social media that they needed for those events. So a big part of since Ashley and I have begun working together is really mending those relationships and making sure that when we are dealing with a third party who's maybe sponsoring us for an event, that we are giving them as much support as possible. So we really have been learning from those shortfalls that might have come before this partnership.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
can
thank
jump in there just if you don't mind, Yola, I can jump in. Just seeing that, like Erin was saying, with those third party relationships. I mean, it can be simple, just as having their logo on our website, or or putting information on our social media. But when you're not collaborating, they may not get all those feel goods that they may want, which then in return may not want them to partner with us in the future. So us being able to collaborate the way we do, those steps aren't missed and those things don't fall through the cracks. So we can make all of our donors feel good and feel special and want us to continue to grow their relationships with Harvest Hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both for sharing that. And it's like sometimes in a moment, things can feel like small. Oh, logo wasn't uploaded, on time, but that one small thing can actually lead to a bigger impact, right? And like loss of trust or relationships at the end of the day. So no, thank you for sharing. I think it's a lot of organizations can relate to that, right? And that's why we're talking about this today. And I think that's important, the alignment between the two departments. Wonderful. So going to talk a little bit more about it. So you both engage with donors, but engage differently. Marketing is creating like broad awareness, response at scale, and philanthropy is focused on relationship, like more so one-on-one. I'm curious, where does one hand off to another, or where do you decide intentionally overlap?
Yeah, I can start on kind of the handoff aspect of it. On our marketing side, for example, we're overseeing a lot of digital or mail campaigns that are more of a widespread kind of communication, whether it's something on social media, email, just kind of more of those high touch points that aren't maybe as personal as the philanthropy team and Ashley's team are getting into. However, I can use the data that I see from donor responses as kind of a flag to indicate, okay, well, maybe it's time to move this person over to Ashley's team to have more of that personal touch. So, for example, if I'm seeing that there's a donor who every single time I mail them a physical mailer, they're donating to us, whether it's monthly, every other month, something like that, that raises a flag in my mind to reach out to Ashley's team and say, hey, this person's a great candidate to become a recurring donor. Let's have someone from your team reach out to them. First off, show them stewardship, show them how appreciative we are for their recurring giving, and give them their options too, because sometimes we don't like receiving junk mail. I hate to think that our mail is junk mail. I don't think it is, but maybe somebody else sees it like that. But that way we can also have that conversation with that donor to see how do they like receiving information from us? How do they like giving? So it's kind of that data tracking of seeing what are the trends with our donors, how are they reacting to what they're seeing on the marketing side to indicate when it's time to hand it off to the philanthropy side.
And on my end, I mean, it's a little different from the philanthropy side because honestly, from the get-go, if we are getting a meeting with a potential, a potential partner, I personally like Erin to be there in a lot of those initial conversations when we're having these meetings and having these sit-down conversations because I think it shows that clear communication from the very get-go. It shows what expectations what our potential, donor is looking for, and having our two departments come together and collaborate in that way. I think that's where I feel like it makes it where there's no miscommunication. I feel like a lot of times within corporations, sometimes people can kind of fight a little bit of what that may look like, but I don't think that needs to happen. I think we need to come together and to be able to have a plan together with a donor and execute it the way it should execute. So having marketing and having Erin there from the get-go I think is very beneficial to everyone involved.
Oh, yeah. Great examples. No, that makes a lot of sense. When a new campaign, I'm curious, or appeal or partnership event come up, like what can you tell us a little bit more, I guess, what's happening now that you have that synchronized approach, right? And you work on the things together. I'm curious if there is any, I'm sure you changed a lot of things internally, right? So I'm curious what kind of approach do you have? If you have like an example of how it all works together, who is involved first, what decision get made early, and how do you avoid, for the lack of better words, crumbling later? If you have a specific process, I'd like to hear about it.
I think with me, I mean, just having an action plan and then having an action plan in place, and then trying to figure out at that point, who it's going to fall under, and the people who are going to represent, each step, of that process. Me personally, I like going in and doing a lot of research, looking at past performance and interactions, especially like with people who have donated or, the audience is what we may be reaching out to. And then, doing some type of goal setting, within that campaign that we may be doing. And then at that point, I think we kind of take it and then we kind of divide those responsibilities, whatever that may look like, and then define timelines within our two departments. Erin, you can jump in with that as well if you want.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's always better when we have a longer timeline ahead of a campaign or ahead of an event because that gives us a lot of runway to be able to do the research analysis into past performance, to get everybody aligned on goal setting. That's a huge thing too, is making sure that we share similar goals and everybody has buy-in for those goals as well, across our different teams, because that also kind of defines, maybe who our audiences are or how we're communicating with them. And then also something that's been really important to us that we've implemented is follow up on the tail end. So not only are we doing a lot of planning up front, but a lot of our events that we're having or a lot of our campaigns that we're having are annual, or have some sort of repetitive kind of nature to them. So it's really important for us to immediately after that campaign is over, that event is over, to take the time and really reflect what went well or what went wrong so that we can keep improving time after time, as we, do it again the next year.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and
so
going
really,
off of that, I mean, going off of that, when she talks about the recap, I mean, it's so important because we could be doing a campaign or an appeal that's going out and not having that recap, we may not know, like, okay, did this bring in $5,000 or did this bring in, $35,000? And being able to have those conversations at the end, helps us be able to plan for the future and what those appeals or campaigns may look like because we brainstorm and say like, okay, well, this worked here, we targeted these people. Okay, this didn't work so well. And without having those follow ups, it kind of gets a little lackluster if we're not talking about it.
absolutely. So really closing the loop after each campaign or event and so on. I'm curious, like, what is the timeline for that? Do you usually do the recaps like within a month, within 2 weeks? I don't know. Do you have a timeline for that? How you typically do it?
It honestly, it depends on the scale of the campaign too. Like many nonprofits, our busiest time of the year really is around the holidays, and we have,
Mhm.
event after event, campaign after
Yeah.
campaign. So finding
Hmm.
the time that the team can really take the time and to reflect, because it's not just Ashley and myself either. We do oversee 20 counties throughout the state of South Carolina.
Hmm.
So for example, I think we'll get into as an example our Giving Tuesday campaign that we had this past December. So a little teaser there. But, Ashley was in Columbia, I was in Florence, but neither of us were in Greenville. So we needed to make sure that we still
Mm.
gave our folks in Greenville the time to also reflect and, provide their insight for what happened in their area on the day of the event. So that's a really long-winded way to say that it really depends on what the
Yeah.
campaign is or the event is.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. And then before we get into Giving Tuesday in a second, is there like any non as you're planning and as you're working together, is there any non-negotiable that you implemented before campaign event goes live?
I personally feel, I mean, like in person and like documented communication is
Mm.
great. Just making sure that we're confirming all aspects of the campaign or the partnership that we may have. Setting those meetings, having those conversations, and make sure everything is clear and documented for everyone.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate too for coming up with like a proposal plan or a campaign plan that has
Hmm.
links to everything too. So,
Hmm.
if you have it at the kickoff, but also right before the actual event happens, just making sure that no matter what happens in the event, if someone's offsite, they're able to see, okay, well, these were the 5 social media posts that went out for the
Hmm.
event. These are the 3 emails that went out for the event, and here's who it went to. So that
Yeah.
way, even if someone from Ashley's team was not the one who physically put up those posts or sent those emails or even, received them or saw them themselves, they can still speak to here's what the whole campaign encompassed. When they're interacting with donors, that donor might have received that email. So it gives them the insight that they need to be fully prepared for whatever the day or the event has in store for them.
Awesome. So it sounds like you have kind of like a centralized hub, right, for the campaign that everyone can quickly access and see those communication. That's fantastic. Well, that was a perfect, way to segment to a good critic example. You mentioned Erin, Giving Tuesday. So if you can walk us through like the example, you know, how did it go? Like, what was the goal? Who owned what? What assets were needed? How did you plan it? Just for everyone to kind of use everything that you've shared and imagine how campaign actually ran.
Well, for everyone who doesn't know what Giving Tuesday is, this is a nationwide event that happens every December. And for Harvest Hope, it's a big fundraiser for us, and usually a social media campaign that takes place, and we try to promote it promote it months prior to the actual day happening. But as you can see here, in these pictures, we had many components to Giving Tuesday this past year. Of course, we had donors who came out and, of course, spread the love with us on that day. We had food drives that were taking place across our 20 counties, and which was amazing. So I'm kind of going to backtrack a little bit because things did happen a little bit differently this year than it has happened in years past. So usually we have had a media component to our Giving Tuesday event. So in Columbia, we had partnered with Watch Fox affiliate, and we set up a location in downtown Columbia. And then what we like to do, people who we knew that were going to be giving for this day, we would set up little promo times for them to come out and be able to do huge check presentations. So what you're seeing here in these pictures are folks who are coming out to present their checks to Harvest Hope Food Bank on Giving Tuesday. So then they got to plug their organization. We got to get plugged on TV as well. It was a win-win for everybody, which was fantastic. This has only happened in Columbia. So this past year, we were able to get a partnership in Greenville as well. So we were able to do the same type of thing in Greenville, set up a location and do check presentations as well. And then hopefully for next year, we can extend that and get a media partner in Florence. And so we'll be able to have all 3 locations covered on that day. But it was an amazing event. We ended up actually raising over 20,000 pounds of non-perishable items. And one of our biggest food drives that day, as you can see in this picture, was from Sheriff Leon Lott. He was there, and his crew came, and they had dropped off a ton of food actually at our location in downtown Columbia, which was amazing.
What a great event. Sounds fantastic. And congratulations on the expansions of the Giving Tuesday. I feel like while some organization actually I hear going away from Giving Tuesday, I also see an organization on the other hand, like Harvest Hope Food Bank, that really takes this opportunity and actually expands the initiative and so on. So tell us a little bit more in terms like preparation, I guess, who owned what, how is the 2 teams working together, any like assets, internal documents, engagement that you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Ashley alluded to, a ton of planning went into this because we did reach out to a lot of folks to be involved ahead of time, especially needing to know our media schedule for the day because we did have coverage, I want to say, starting at 7 or 8 in the morning until maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
Yes.
which was incredible. We're so grateful for our partners to be willing to give us that airtime. But it also meant a ton of
Congratulations.
coordination. Oh, thank
Yes.
you. A ton of coordination with especially donors. So that largely fell underneath Ashley's team was doing those personal outreach to those donors ahead of time to, a lot of them were already going to be giving to us for their annual giving anyway. So it really was a great chance to show stewardship to those individuals. So her team largely owned setting up those check presentations. Same with the food drives. We were grateful to partner with Food Lion. They are one of our retail partners to host food drives throughout our 20 counties. So Ashley's team oversaw that as well, getting all of those partnerships set up. And then we also have an agency team who has not really been mentioned too much ahead of this, but they play a huge part in our Giving Tuesday. So we have 350 food pantries that partner with us throughout the state. So our agency department oversees those relationships with our food pantries. So they were involved in kind of getting set up in the food drive, but all that to say, so much communication went into this. We had weekly touch point meetings ahead of time just to make sure that everybody was kind of on the same page. From a marketing standpoint, it was a lot of, as Ashley mentioned, social media presence leading up to the day to kind of build excitement and build awareness. And then the day of, we did a lot of live coverage too to let people know where we were, which partners were with us at the time. And we did see a ton of response from donors the day of the event too. because that excitement was built up. So a lot of individual donors, I believe we grew our individual donorship by 30% year over year for Giving Tuesday. So that
Yep,
collaboration,
it
I
was
think,
30.
really was the success of it, was just being so prepared ahead of time and all on the same page, having that same messaging from donors to social media to agency partners, everybody getting excited about it.
Yeah, and Eula, I know you were saying like folks are, looking to get away from that, but with like you were saying with Harvest Hope, with all the collaboration that does happen, amongst the different departments at Harvest Hope, we're looking to, to potentially make it grow even larger, this coming up December.
That's absolutely fantastic. And actually, that's what I see, with few other nonprofits that I've been talking to, those who are really, focusing on Giving Tuesday, they've been really able to
Mhm.
grow that. So really looking forward to 2026 Giving Tuesday at Harvest Hope Food Bank. Very exciting. Um, I'm curious, we talk about the timeline a little bit. I'm just curious if you can recall, and if not, that's okay too. But how long would preparation coordination for something like Giving Tuesday take your departments? Like when do you start the initial planning?
Within philanthropy, it was over 3 months out from the event.
Hmm.
So a little over three
Yeah.
months. Erin, I think, I don't want to speak for you, but typically with philanthropy, we try to reach out because there are matching components you can get on Giving Tuesday. So the philanthropy department will reach out
Hmm.
to certain donors to see if they would do a matching component for us, which then we can start, promoting as soon as possible. And then, like Erin was saying earlier, working with all of our, corporate sponsors and individual donors who are looking to give for that day to, so we can align that and get that set up for the day because that does take a lot of planning.
Yeah, and
Wonderful. And
kind of going off of that with the marketing side, we were plugged into the communication 3 months out. We didn't start actually advertising the event until probably about 6 weeks out. But it was helpful to know, the steps that philanthropy was taking up until that point when we were ready to kind of kick off our part of it.
yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. The next question that I had for both of you is, and you've touched on it throughout our conversation, so kind of wanted to wrap it up nicely all together. Giving Tuesday is just one example, right, of the coordination that you were able to achieve between fundraising and marketing. But looking at the coordination in general, like what systems or habits make this coordination possible on day-to-day basis?
I would say, I mean, it's been kind of the key theme today, but the communication has been really key, regardless of whether or not we have an active campaign or appeal going on. We're having weekly meetings just to make sure that we're still up to date on the happenings of not only our two departments, but the departments around the entire organization. I think it's really important to just know what's going on in operations, and programs with our agencies, as I had mentioned before. But just communication has been really key. And honestly, Giveffect too has been really helpful for
I was going to
us.
say that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have a really great team at Giveffect that supports us and has given us a lot of personal trainings because over the years of our partnership, they've really gotten to know our organization and what our needs are. So even this year, I think for about a 6 week period, we had a weekly training really tailored to our customers navigating our own CRM systems. So that's been immensely helpful for our team too, to be operating off of a shared platform. Of course, we still have silos for, I might be operating in different things than Ashley's team than our finance team is, but just to know that we have the shared CRM so that way we're all working from the same donors and volunteers and organizations has been really helpful for our organization.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of that, especially with Give Effect. I mean, there's so many different components to it, and within our departments, we use it, for donor relations. We use it to upload volunteers, and we'll create campaigns within Giveffect. So like she was saying earlier, having that communication and making sure our CRM, is up to date. So, cross departments can go in and look and like you were saying, wrapped up in a bow and everything is there for you to see and get the information. No questions. So if somebody was happened to be gone or out, you can just pull up that information, you can pull up that campaign, and you have all that information.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those. And now let's talk a little bit. We are about 5 minutes away from live Q&A. So for everyone who is here live, please feel free to go ahead and, submit your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. But I have just a couple last questions for both of you, Ashley and Erin. Let's switch to gear and talk a little bit about outcomes, right? And you've touched again a little bit on that. We've talked about the outcomes of Giving Tuesday campaign. But in general, like looking back at the system, streamlined system that you were able to create from donor or partner perspective, what's feel different now that your teams are more aligned?
For me personally,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm going to say just execution, overall execution. Before it could have been a little scattered and not so organized. And when things are organized and they're executed properly, I think your organization reaps those benefits. When your teams can be organized, when you're in communication, and things execute properly, then I think you kind of see things twofold, and we make more, and then we end up making more money that way.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to is I think it's become a lot better from the donor journey side as well. Our messaging has been more consistent across different platforms. We're not running into an instance where, Ashley's team is reaching out to a donor, talking about giving opportunities, and they're like, oh, well, I just donated on this social media campaign 2 days ago, kind of thing. So the communication with the donor activity is really clear as well. And our branding too. I mean, I'm biased because I live in a world of marketing, but I think branding is so important. But just to be able to have that runway to be able to give the assets that we need for a partner who's throwing an event for us, or if we're doing a tabling event or something like that, just to have that cohesive look and feel of Harvest Hope, I think not only helps us internally, but externally too. It's creating more brand awareness. Donors feel more confident in it because it looks more professional. So I think that's gone a long way too in our partnership.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Erin, you mentioned earlier also, I think in the beginning of the discussion, the vendor relationships that might have been like, you had to not had to, but repair it through this collaboration as well. So that's wonderful. For someone who might not be in the situation where their fundraising and marketing are aligned as of right now, if you could give nonprofit leaders one practical shift to make, maybe we're almost at second quarter of the year, right? So if there are to take some steps to improve fundraising and marketing alignment, what would it be?
I would say taking the time to understand the expectations and capacity of the other team is really helpful. We've mentioned communication a lot and we've mentioned timeline a lot, but it's really important to know too, for whoever you're asking to execute on, what is their actual capacity? And in return, also being able to be honest about your own capacity. That was definitely a learning curve too for our teams. As many other nonprofits out there, we're a fairly small team. I'm a marketing department of one, so I need to be completely honest with Ashley's team to set expectations of when I can get things turned around to them, and vice versa. So just not only that clear communication, but setting clear expectations goes a really long way too, and can really add up to big value over time.
Yeah, and I agree with all those things that Erin just said, but then I also want to add just, we are a team. And I know sometimes a lot of departments want to kind of hold things close to their chest and not expand out and get help from other departments. And I just feel I have to say on this call, you have to be able to work as a team. You have to be able to collaborate and get ideas from other departments. And, you lean on each other because I feel like when you have, more minds are better than one a lot of the time. And when you can come together like that and execute, I think things, can be very, very successful. And I think that's why our Giving Tuesday campaign was successful this past December, just having different types of collaboration and working with the different departments that we do have and coming together as a team.
Absolutely. And again, congratulations on that. But we are going to go ahead and switch the gears here. And again, thank you for all the knowledge that you shared so far. But we're going to go ahead and jump into live Q&A. Again, for everyone on the call, we still have time. Please feel free to take a minute or so to add any additional questions you might have for Ashley and Erin. But we'll start with a few questions we already have submitted here. I have a quick questions from Rick. We'll start there. It's like his question is, how many meals do you serve each year?
Ooh, do you have that stat pulled up, Erin?
I think between our emergency food pantries and our agency partners, it's 250 million meals a year. So it's very substantial.
Yeah, and that's over all 20 counties.
Mhm.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, that's the way to, test marketing team and Philanthropy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm like,
Thank you
you
for
got me
the
there. Yeah.
question.
She usually has the thing is, Erin usually has the stats just right there and she's ready to go with them. So, which is
Sure.
amazing.
No, that's fantastic. What a great impact, in your state and across those 20 counties that you mentioned. Next question is, what system do you use to compile all of the marketing assets for a campaign? Spreadsheets with links or something more formal?
Yeah, we're a Microsoft-based organization, so we primarily use SharePoint to organize all of our files. So a lot of then planning docs, I do use Excel to be able to put in very clearly, dates. Here's what the asset is, here's what the message is, here's what the audience is, and always saving that in the same folder as the actual marketing assets, as well as that planning document that I spoke about earlier that has links to everything in the very clearly laid out plan. But we really do heavily rely on Microsoft SharePoint because we all have access to it on our phones and stuff on the go too.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Erin, for that response. The next question, it's gonna be a little bit long, but bear with me. All right, thanks so much, Jennifer, for the question. But Jennifer looks like working at a private school, and it seems like our department, development communications, compete with other school communications, thereby not getting the immediacy we might want. For example, we cannot send out on Mondays, like send out communications on Mondays because all school newsletter goes out. So depending on all other departments, we cannot maybe get the media time we would prefer. So do you have any ideas? Also, because we've gotten larger, all communications goes through Marcom versus a number of years ago, I could send out all grade level personal emails. Now I can send out large group personal emails, which makes me feel like I cannot be personal, which is what truly builds the relationship for giving. So, real scenario there. The setting is a little bit different, but I'm curious if Erin, Ashley, if you have any advice for Jennifer.
Yeah, shared and public calendars have been really helpful for us to coordinate on that kind of communication. We still experience that overlap sometimes where I might be sending out a weekly newsletter to donors or to volunteers, and someone from Ashley's team might be doing a site visit on that same day. But that at least gives them the visibility to actually look at it as a positive, and they can mention, hey, did you get our newsletter today, or did you get a chance to look at this? So that way we can kind of frame it as more of a way to collaborate as a way than as a way of like competing with one another for communications. We also funnel all of our social media presence and most of our mass communication through our Marcom team. So Ashley's team is really only doing the personal outreach side of it, and anything that is more social media based or a blast email or something like that is coming from my team. So we kind of have the same structure there, but I'm always talking with Ashley to ask her what she would like to include in those messages. For example, our volunteer newsletter always has a call to action to sign up for more volunteers. So it's kind of that duality of its stewardship, thanking our volunteers, but we're also kind of putting in that marketing piece of we need you to sign up to be volunteers again. So we definitely have come from a similar place before, but we found those niche ways to kind of work together as opposed to compete against each other in communication. I hope that addressed your question or at least gave you some ideas.
Yeah, and then there was a second part, very small. Do you use teamwork or another software for coordinating? You mentioned like shared calendar, or is it just a shared calendar or something like that?
Just the Microsoft shared calendars.
Okay, got it. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Erin. Couple more questions here before we wrap up. And if you have last minute question, I feel like we can take maximum three. So feel free to add one more. But we go to the next question from Mia. What percent of your individual donation budget do you raise on Giving Tuesday? What percent of and what percent of your overall budget?
Just for Giving Tuesday, it brings in roughly about 15% of our overall fundraising budget for the year.
Yeah, so 15% for overall fundraising budget comes from the Giving Tuesday. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's from a donor standpoint because a lot of our donations do come in from grants, and then of course individual donations from individuals or corporations. So it could potentially be a big chunk of our overall budget, depending on the year.
Wonderful. And then we have another question from Kathy. Has legislative advocacy also been a part of your role in terms of policy, programming in support of community resources? If so, how is it approached, tracked within your CRM?
Yeah, absolutely. It's ironic. Yesterday was actually our advocacy day at the state capitol here in South Carolina.
There you
So
go.
we had a
Yes,
combined
we were
team
there.
of marketing, philanthropy, advocacy, all going out to different legislators and meeting them. But yeah, our advocacy team plays a huge part in our communication for both of our teams because they can really help us shape our story in a way that's going to be most impactful. And they inform a lot of the stats that we're including in those conversations as well and allow them to tailor them to be the most impactful as they can be. So they play a huge role.
Yeah, I can just give
Thank
the
you so
example
much.
from just being, yeah, I can give the example
Go
just
ahead.
being at the State House yesterday for Advocacy Day. You know, in South Carolina, food banks were on a bill, to be able to actually, give funding to our food banks across the state of South Carolina, and that has not happened in a very long time. So we needed to be out there to be able to advocate for our food bank to be able to potentially get money in from the state.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ashley, Erin, for answering all the questions, but also just being here today and answering. And sorry, Kathy had a follow-up question. Does advocacy team also in your CRM?
Was she asking if we had an advocacy team? Was that
Yeah,
the
and if
question?
they use CRM as well, or if they use something else.
So we do have our advocacy team is a team of one, and but yes, she does use the CRM program as well.
We
Perfect.
all
Well, thank you.
yep. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna
No,
say
go ahead,
if
Erin.
anybody else, I'm sure a lot of folks use Giveffect, but the interactions are where most of us will kind of log our communications. So whether it's a mailer that's going out, whether it's a meeting that our advocacy individual had with a representative, or whether it's, a coffee that one of Ashley's team members had with a donor, it's all logged in that same place in the interaction. So it's a really easy way for us to be able to go back and kind of see here's the journey that this person has gone on.
Yep. And
Oh, that's sweet.
the last,
Oh.
very last question, I promise. Can you share the size of your organization, your annual budget, and your overall fundraising goal?
They wanted to know the overall annual the
Fundraising,
fundraising.
yeah, as much as you can share, right? The size, I guess, overall annual budget, fundraising goals, anything you can share
Yeah,
at
so
this time.
for that would be a little over $12 million for
Mhm.
fundraising.
Wonderful.
that
And I guess
kind,
size of organization, like maybe employee wise or yeah, team wise.
We have
right
about
now we're
60 to 70 full-time employees on staff across 3 different offices.
Yeah, and then of course we are with thousands of volunteers that we have at each one of our locations as well.
All right, so we officially cover all the questions, and thank you everyone who submitted live questions and also engaged in the chat. Yeah, I see comment from Turner thank you. Your team sounds like a dream. So
That's
really
when I was like,
fantastic
that's so
work.
sweet. Yeah, like that's so sweet.
And thank
Yeah.
you, Charter. What a wonderful comment. And thank you, Ashley and Erin, for all the time, the knowledge that you shared today through the session. Also, congratulations again on your kind of overall collaboration, streamlining, and also achieving fantastic results as a team. But we are gonna wrap up this session, and just a couple of things that I wanted to quickly share with everyone. If you're thinking about how what we've learned today from Harvest Hope Food Bank team applies to your organization. We are currently offering a very unique opportunity. We don't do it often, but this time we have an exclusive offer of free data migration and $1,000 off any subscription. All you need to do is schedule a call. It's a strategy call. It's a conversation with our team to be scheduled by March 31st. You don't have to have a call by March 31st, just schedule it. And if you decide also to join Giveffect by the June 30th, that's would make you eligible for this offer. And of course, just piggybacking off what Tara shared earlier, we do have a coffee giveaway, so you can still enter that. We have 10 of those every day. It's very easy. Just go on LinkedIn, find Giveffect, you know, follow us, tag us, make a comment, and at the end of today, we will be sharing the winners. But that's finalize our session. Next, we have a short, just a few minutes break, followed by our next session, Small Team, Big Reach, Fundraising that Scales Without Burnout. To navigate to the next session, simply head back over the event's virtual lobby page or session page, scroll down to the next session and click Join. But again, Ashley, Erin, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for everyone who joined live. We wish you the great rest of your Thursday. Join other sessions if you can. And recordings will be shared hopefully by tomorrow. Some folks were asking me if they can get the recording. Yes, recording will be available. So stay tuned for that. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.